Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Hope you're having a great day today. For this week's video, what we're going to do is take this Ibanez SA series guitar, we're going to do some mods on it, and hopefully take it up to the next level. Now, this particular Ibanez is the SA160. A few weeks ago, I did a video on this guitar, basically went through all the stock sounds, talked about what I liked and disliked about it. So if you want to hear this guitar in its current form, hit up that video, take a listen. But today, we're focusing on the mods. Now, one thing I will say about the SA160 is that Ibanez has since replaced this guitar with the 260, but in my estimation, the 160 is the better deal. Here's the reason why. First of all, you can find them used for great prices. And the second thing is you get a mahogany body and a rosewood fingerboard on the SA160. On the 260, those woods have been replaced with other ones. So if you want the classic combination, proven over time, 160, better prices, and classic wood combinations. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the parts we're going to add to our Ibanez today. Here we go. So let's start by checking out the pickups. We've got a set of JBEs. Now, of course, these are legendary for the Danny Gatton Telly set, and these have a really great reputation amongst Strat owners as well. So I was really eager to try these out. We've got an HSS set in white because the stock pickups are kind of like just nondescript. So we want something that pops. So we're going to use white, and that's going to tie in with the headstock really nice because we've got a white and silver logo up there. So I think using white and silver will kind of pull the whole guitar together. So let's check them out. There you go. So we've got the square bobbin humbucker and 2 blade pickups. Now, I am not experienced with the blade pickups at all. So I'm really eager, to see what they're going to sound like and how they play. They're supposed to, eliminate any sort of volume drop when bending and stuff like that. So these are the pickups we're going to use. Should be awesome. So the humbucker is the JBE two-tone, really versatile pickup. As you can tell by the leads, there's like 6 different leads plus the ground. So this thing can be like split, tapped, put in parallel, all sorts of different ways that you can wire this up. So really versatile pickup. And here's a look at the single coils, which are supposed to give you a really nice single coil sound, but without any hum. Now, of course, upgrading the tuning machines on a guitar like this is a must. So we've got some Graphtec ratio locking tuners. I've used these ones before. These are really great locking tuners. I've got 6 inline here, non-staggered in height. So if I was going to put them on like a Telly or a Strat, I would use the staggered height ones to eliminate string trees. But because the Ibanez has a tilt back on the headstock, we can use all the same heights on the tuning machines. And of course, the ratios on this side, it kind of shows it. Each individual tuning machine has a different gear on the inside, which means you can just turn them the same amount no matter which string you're using, which is super convenient and really, really a genius idea. Now, beyond the parts upgrades, we're going to also do some playability upgrades. So we're going to roll the fingerboard edges, polish up the fret ends, work on the nut a little bit. And I was really hoping to replace the block on the trem or even replace the trem. But because of the proprietary nature of this Ibanez design, that's not going to be feasible. So we'll talk about that in a second and take a look at the trem in some greater detail. Off we go. Let's start modding. Now, when I start modding, I like to begin with replacing the tuning machines. It's an easy mod that's really rewarding. So here we go. We're going to pull these babies off. These are the stock Ibanez SA series tuning machines. Again, unbranded. They're okay, but the Graphtecs are going to be a massive upgrade. Another thing I love about the ratio tuners is they come with a big old bag of adapter plates, which means they're going to fit on almost any guitar style. And if you have one that hasn't been drilled, you can just pick your style and drill the holes once they're installed. So really easy to install on any guitar. And if I ever decide to sell the 160 here, I can pull them off and I won't have to modify anything, put the stock ones back on. And because they are expensive tuning machines, you can take them along with you, and whatever guitar you upgrade to, you can fit them on those. All right, so let's use our socket to remove the top nut and washer, and then we'll go and remove the screw from the backside. Now we simply have to remove each retaining screw here, and we're off to the races. As I mentioned before, keep all your stock parts, throw them in a Ziploc bag, label them with a Sharpie so you know where they came from. In case you ever go to sell the instrument, put these back on and keep your good aftermarket parts. Now, honestly, I wasn't sure if these were reamed out to 10 millimeters or not, but 10 mil is pretty standard. So thankfully it's a perfect fit. And I think I've tracked down the adapter plate we need, which is this little 45 degree. And I think it should be just perfect. I can line it up with the hole, and the screw hole lines up as well. So I think we're going to use 6 of these. Let's put them all together. So here's a better look at one of the adapter plates installed here. All we have to do then is drop our tuning machine in, and then we'll lock it in, of course, with the washer and the nut on the top side. But that's the process. So we're going to put in the rest of our 6 plates. And hopefully you guys can see from this angle here, but each one of the ratio tuners has a number on it. So they need to go in the 6th string, 5th string, 4th string. Because they have unique internal gears, they all have to go in the appropriate spot. So the plates are locked down with the screws and the tuning machines are set in order 1 to 6. Now what we need to do is take our collar and nut and just attach it from the back side here, and that will lock everything nice and tight in place. So I'm just going to finger tighten them for now all the way down, and then we'll of course use the socket and lightly snug them up when we have them all in place. Some solid advice from Graphtec right on the bag: only tighten bushings half turn past snug to avoid damaging your guitar. The tuning machines are not holding the neck on. They don't need to be tightened down like crazy. Just a little bit past snug and you're good to go. So let's take a look at the before picture of the stock tuning machines. And now here are the Graphtec ratios. So locking tuners on an Ibanez just looks right. I think these babies are going to be awesome. Next step is the pickups. I'm excited about this one. So looking inside the cavity here and pulling away some of the existing wiring, you can see small dime-sized pots here for your volume and tone, and a fairly cheap looking 5-way switch. And of course the output jack here is inside the main cavity, because on the SA series you plug in through the front face of the guitar, which is really cool. So definitely could be an area of upgrade in the future. I'm kind of surprised they're the smaller pots in this guitar, given that it is somewhat of a mid-range instrument, but it is what it is. So there you go. Let's start with the pickup installation. I really love the finish on this guitar with the deep blue kind of going into the lighter quilt. Really, really attractive. So let's start by just removing some of the stock pickups. That way we can see the colors of the wires when I remove them from the switch and solder in our new JBEs. So here we go. We're just gonna loosen up the attaching screws here. So there you go, quantum single coils. All right, so we've got 2 of those and a humbucker. So anyway, what we're gonna do is trace this wiring back to the switch, unsolder it, and throw in our new ones. But I have to remove these 2 before I can actually, feed the wire through. So let's do that now, and I think this is gonna look super cool. All right, you guys, we've got the neck pickup and the middle pickup mocked up. They're not soldered in yet, but I can tell it's gonna look absolutely fantastic. It's gonna look super cool. But we've run into our first problem. So because the pickup surround for the bridge is rounded and the bobbin for our humbucker is square, it doesn't quite fit. So we can kind of slip it on one side, and it's super close to kind of like, getting enough clearance, but not quite. So I think what we're gonna have to do is just radius out a little bit of these slightly wider with my Dremel tool. It is a metal piece, so I do want to keep it. And of course, if we took it off and just put the humbucker in, then these 4 screw holes would be exposed. So we don't want to do that either. So I think I'm going to take my Dremel tool, widen it just slightly so we can slip it past the square bobbins, and away we go. All right, crisis averted. We've got the cover on, and as you guys can see, hopefully, anyway, I slightly widened the arch there. Really won't be noticeable, especially as the square bobbins cover up most of that stuff. Anyway, so we've got the cover on, and all we need to do is feed the wire through, attach it, and then we can flip it over and get onto the soldering. All right, you guys, we've got them wired up on the back. The moment of truth is here. Let's test out the pickups. So there's your neck and middle. Just the middle. Oh, let's do both together. And then just the bridge. So it looks like everything's wired up okay. That's awesome. Now that the pickups are wired up, all I want to do is put the strings on and hear what it sounds like, but we got to do our playability stuff first. Now, as you guys can see, the fret ends are actually pretty decent on this guitar, for a nice lower end guitar. But what we're going to do is roll the fingerboard edges, which I do on most of my instruments. So I'm just going to take my foam sanding sponge here and work back and forth between the frets just to roll those edges, which you normally find on more expensive guitars. So I know the sanding block here is going to get in the way of the camera, but I'm just going to do a fret here. There. So hopefully you guys can see the difference between the fingerboard on either side of this one. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that sanding sponge here and just go through all my frets one at a time and roll those fingerboard edges so that when I'm hanging my thumb over, it's going to be a really nice, smooth, comfortable experience. Now after the fingerboard edges have a nice roll to them, what I like to do is just take some steel wool and buff everything out. This just shines and polishes everything up in a really nice way. You can even lightly go over top of the frets if you want to, you know, shine them up and buff them out too. I'll clean up my fingerboards like this as well with some really, you know, light steel wool to take any fingerboard gunk and stuff out of there. And then I think we'll rehydrate the board. But for now, I just like to use steel wool just to clean everything up, shine up the frets, but mostly do the ends here, just in case the sanding block, you know, either didn't go far enough or went too far. This just kind of evens everything out. But when you're using the sanding block or the steel wool, you just float it over, right? You don't want to go too crazy. So not using any downward pressure, just floating everything over, cleaning everything up, and this is going to make it play absolutely beautifully. Now, as you guys can see at the end of the process, we've got nice rolled fingerboard edges on each one of our frets. The fret ends themselves are nice and shiny and smooth, so as your thumb or your finger slides up and down, either way, it's going to be nice and smooth, and of course, our rosewood board is nice and hydrated. Now the final thing we want to do before we string it up is, of course, make sure there's no burrs in our nut slot. So we're going to take the file here and just angle it a little bit up like that, because you just want this forward edge contacting the string, okay? So we're just going to take that angle, just go with the existing one, run your file back and forth through there, just nice and smooth, just to make sure there's no burrs, okay? The height and the setup on this guitar is quite good, so I don't have to worry about that. But I just want to make sure that as I use the trim, that nothing's going to stick. So there's a gauge for each one of the slots. So you pick the appropriate gauge and just again, run it through, make sure there's no burrs, and we're going to do that for each one of the strings. So a few words about the Ibanez trim system. This is the SAT2 and pretty much all of it is proprietary. So normally on an upgrade video, I might add a big old brass block like this or replace the trim system altogether, but I can't do that. This one has, you know, the regular 3-screw attachment. Ibanez has 6 individual screws under the saddles holding, you know, the stock block on. So this wasn't going to work. And the distance between the posts is again proprietary. So it's not like a Floyd Rose, it's not like a Strat. So, you know, you can't just buy something and upgrade it by dropping it in. Now that being said, it's a pretty good bridge. The saddles are really nice and smooth, so when you lay your hand on there to palm mute, feels great. Intonation is easily set up with these screws at the back. And of course, it's got a drop-in bar with a locking set screw. So the bar feels really nice and the saddles feel great too. Now on the back side of the trim, there's a couple really cool features too. There's a spring retainer plate that kind of goes on the bottom of the block. 2 screws lock it in, and that just keeps your springs from moving at all. So you can't take them out until you remove the plate, and that just means as you're using your bar, even if the springs go totally slack, they're not going to come free. So that's a nice feature. So as you guys can see, I've pulled off the spring retainer plate and pulled 2 of the springs so that we can see in all the way to the bottom. There's 6 adjustment screws with springs on them, and what that does is it locks the saddles to the top plate. So another really cool feature, so no matter how far you kind of bomb down with the bar, the saddles aren't going to shift side to side or, you know, come loose. There's always going to be downward pressure from the top saddles on the plate, which is a pretty cool feature too. So even though I would love to upgrade the trim system in some way, at least it's got some cool features and seems to work pretty well. Okay, we're pretty much ready to plug this thing in and take it for a test drive, which I'm super excited about. We need to, of course, take off our black tip switch and put on a white one. That's going to definitely tie, again, from the headstock all the way through. And just kind of waffling whether I should do white knobs too. So let me know if you guys think, and this one's the volume. Let's turn that up. Like so. If we should do the volume and tone as well. So let me know if you guys like the full kind of white and blue aesthetic. I think it looks pretty cool. Or if you prefer the silver knobs. All right, you guys, so here's the final product. We've got the blue and white aesthetic taken from the headstock. Of course, we've got our beautiful ratio locking tuners, non-staggered in height, works perfectly. The neck feels absolutely amazing. Much more like a Prestige than a $300 guitar. Just a little bit of work makes all the difference in the world. Feels great to play on. Then we've got our JBE blade pickups, neck, middle, single coils, and the bridge humbucker. They're going to be silent, so I can't wait to plug them in. And other than that, let's see what they sound like. So these pickups really are incredible. They're clear, they're bright without being ice picky, so they sound close to a single coil, but zero hum, they're dead quiet, and that bridge is just insanely powerful. I'll have to maybe balance them out a little bit more when I have time, but just, you know, testing them for you guys, wow, tons of power in that bridge. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that one. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this mod video. If there's any other instruments you'd like to see me mod on the channel, just let me know in the comments below. Other than that, have an awesome week, you guys. Take care.